Well, happy Therapy Monday, Broncos country, and welcome to Let's Talk Broncos. Bree Maestas, Zach Seegers, Joey Richards. Guys, before we get into it, because I want to get into the therapy session quick tonight, let's talk a little bit about the celebratory events over the weekend. Obviously, big game for CU. Zach and Mario Vitanzi will be breaking that down tomorrow. You want to tune in because close game, great results. A win's a win. Don't care about anything else. And if you haven't already, get your Let's Talk Buffs t-shirts because both me and Zach are rocking them tonight. Joey, not so much. He's not a team player, but that's all right. It's why I don't follow him over on the Twitter. But let's jump into it, guys. It was the celebratory season for the Denver Broncos championship from the 1998 Super Bowl. Super Bowl 33. First 25,000 fans into the stadium got commemorative rings. I know Zach got his. I got mine. What a fun affair before the tides turned sour. And we're going to talk about it tonight. But I want to know, guys, who's your favorite player from that Super Bowl in particular?
Yeah, go ahead, Zach. Take it.
I mean, I got to go Terrell Davis. Terrell Davis is my all-time favorite Bronco, my all-time favorite player, I think. I love me some Terrell Davis. He barely played during my lifetime, but going back, like I grew up on those Super Bowl 32 and Super Bowl 33 VHS tapes, and I don't know. I just love his running style. I'm a running back guy. I love the running back position. And I love Terrell Davis. He's awesome. He's the man. I love how revered 30 was by like Philip Lindsay, all that stuff. Terrell Davis is my guy. And I also got to change my calendar to September. So I'll do that while Joey answers.
I'm going to go, you know me. I'm a trenches guy, Bree. I like the trenches. I like offensive line, defensive line. Everyone knows that. If you're a listener to the pod, you know that about me. I'm going to go with the guy that doesn't get any recognition ever, it feels like. I'm going to go with Tom Nalen. Tom Nalen is one of the best centers ever. If you don't know Tom Nalen, you don't know Broncos football. For real, you're not a true fan. Tom Nalen is one of the best centers, literally, ever. He's awesome. And he held down that position for the Broncos for a very, very long time. Going to 1999, for what we're talking about now, to a really long time down the line. So I'm going to go Tom Nalen as that, just to be a little different. And then also
O-line hipster.
Give some love to the O-line. They never get any line. I know if Colton Cooper's in here, he'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. I think that Coop would appreciate it. Shouts out to Coop. Sad he's not in the chat. If you'd like to get involved with the show, go on over to Let's Talk Broncos on YouTube. We're live right now. You can get involved with all of our conversations, but we're going to hear from Rex Ryan here in a second. He's broken down. Maybe it would be different. Maybe if a different defensive coordinator would be and the defense wouldn't look so crappy. I thought for a second I was on radio and I didn't want to swear. It's fucked. Let's listen to what Rex Ryan has to say.
Okay, because we're all looking. How come this marriage, Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, doesn't seem to be clicking? Well, it is clicking. This team has averaged more points per possession than any offensive unit in the National Football League. Nobody knows that. It's the truth. Last week, they only had 6 possessions. So whose fault is that on? It's on their defense. Their defense is supposed to be number 1 in the league. If I was going to be the coordinator, I don't know what the hell it's doing now. That's who's letting this team down. It's their defense. It's not the offense. So, to me, it's a crazy stat. This team is more points per possession than any offense in the league. So, to me, I think it's fixable. And we just got to get that defense playing to what the expectations were.
Rex Ryan is fucking hilarious. Let's start off there.
We are going to start there. Go for it, Joey.
Okay, thank you. Rex Ryan's hilarious. I first want to start about the guy. He was spitting a little bit, like when he was talking about the Broncos are number 1 in points per possession. That's a fact. You can't take that away. That is literally a stat, and I think that's something people need to know. When you look at that first Raiders game, terrible for points per game, but really good on points per possession. They only had 6 series really on that, and they had opportunity to score in 4 of those. The area where it's like, Rex Ryan, you're out of your mind, is that he thinks that he could have the number 1 defense with this team. I don't think there's anybody that could have the number 1 defense with the roster as it's constructed. It's just not a very talented roster. There's been a lot of, is it completely Vance Joseph's fault? I don't think so. Is it a little bit Vance Joseph's fault? Definitely. That it falls somewhere in the middle. It's a mixture on that side of the football. I wonder, though, if Rex Ryan was the defensive coordinator right now, would the defense be better? And I lean yes. That's where I do think he has a little bit of a point. Rex Ryan is an innovator. I'm not sure what Vance Joseph has innovated. Rex Ryan is definitely an innovator. He led an era of football on that defensive side, a lot like Vic Fangio has in this era of defensive football. So I lean in Rex Ryan's kind of words there, but I also disagree completely in that this defense would be number one. Yeah, that's just where I am.
Wait. You think the defense would be number one with Rex Ryan, or you don't agree completely?
I completely disagree. That would be ridiculous.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry. I misheard you. I thought you said you completely agreed with that. And I'm like, whoa. Yeah, I agree. I think Vance Joseph is totally deserving of criticism. I think this defense is also really lacking talent. Like, it's not an either or. I keep having like an argument with people on Twitter where I don't think it's a binary. I'm not trying to protect Vance Joseph. Vance Joseph has been bad. He is a big problem with this defense. I also think, secondary is probably this team's biggest strength on defense, and secondary is a position group defined by its weakest link. And man, does that secondary have some serious weak links, and then if it's not the secondary, it's inside linebacker, where the Broncos have a couple of good players, but nothing extraordinary there, and both those players have their limitations. So, and then you talk about a defensive front that is just so disappointing so far this season. I don't know who'd be coaching it up. The Rex Ryan versus Vance Joseph debate is hilarious to me, though. It reminds me of in Superbad when McLovin first shows off his fake ID. And they're, giving him a hard time for choosing the name McLovin. And he's like, well, it was either that or Muhammad. And they're like, why the fuck would it be that or Muhammad? That's how I feel here. Why the fuck would it be Vance Joseph or Rex Ryan, a guy who hasn't been in the NFL for several years and has just been corny on ESPN for like the last half decade? Why is that option B? Like, let's have the Vic Fangio convo. I feel like if Sean Payton truly got his way, it would have been Vic Fangio.
Okay, but we can have that conversation. But I want to talk a little bit about the talent on the roster, because I think I have a little bit of pushback there. Because when you're talking about good defenses, superstar defenses, Super Bowl winning defenses, a lot of the time you start thinking about player production and who's creating a lot of pressures. Last week we saw that the pass rush was just non-existent. Today, or on Sunday, that changed pretty remarkably so. And I think that you can argue that the talent maybe isn't the issue. Now, injuries are piling up for the secondary. There's a lack of extreme depth there, but where do you see the largest and most talented stars being on one said defense? I think you're looking and reaching a little bit too far, hoping that you have like these major star powers. You have Justin Simmons, you have Patrick Surtain, you do have a Randy Gregory who is absolutely lights out. Nick Benito was stepping up, both linebackers, or all three of them rather. So I don't think that there's a lack of talent on this defense. I think there's a lack of continuity there. I think there is a direct point at where Vance Joseph isn't utilizing that defense to the best of its standards. There's Zach Allen missing. Like, we need a wanted poster. I think Drew Sanders not getting any reps. The absence of Riley Moss, who could or could not have an impact depending on the injuries that we're seeing in the cornerback room. So let's just talk a little bit. And I just want to push back, and you guys can yell at me because I know the chat's going crazy. I'll get to you guys in a second. I do not think it's a lack of talent on the defense, because before we started this season, hopes were way up and injuries haven't impacted him that far. So is it the line? Is it a sense of like against different opponents they're struggling? Because I do not believe it's a talent issue. I do think it's a talent issue because, okay, so you point out Patrick Surtain, who I do think is the best cornerback in the league, and I do think so far has had an insane season. Like, it is looking awesome out there. But when you have such glaring incompetencies in the secondary, like, Surtain can only do so much. He can only cover one guy on every single play. And if the other 3-4 players out on a route aren't being covered, the offense will just go to one of them. And
I think that's kind of the problem with this Broncos defense right now. I think hopes were high. Joey and I hyped up a guy like Randy Gregory because of what he was early last season before the injury.
And
he has not
before
bounced
that,
back
yeah.
to pre-injury form. Like, look at the first, I forget when he got injured last year, week 5, week 6, the first 4-5 weeks of the season when he was healthy, his numbers are of a top 5, top 10 pass rusher in the league.
Yeah.
He has not been close to that. D-Bronx put it in the chat. He's getting beat by Andrew Wiley and Jermaine Illuminor.
Yeah,
like that's a lack of talent. Zach Allen, you talked about him being on a missing poster. That's a lack of talent. Like Vance Joseph drafted Zach Allen or he was part of the staff or the regime, whatever, that drafted Zach Allen and has groomed him and then targeted that guy to replace Draymond Jones. I don't think it's like Vance Joseph doesn't know how to use Zach Allen. I think it's a lack of talent, and it's Vance Joseph too. Don't get me wrong. He's been bad. He's not maximizing this team, but post Bradley Chubb trade, the Denver Broncos were 23rd in defensive EPA last year. It's like the second half of the season. It's a really big sample size. 23rd in defensive EPA. Now they're like 30th, 31st, I think. If we want to blame Vance Joseph for the drop from 23 to 31, that's fair. I think the lack of talent is the reason they've dropped from top 5 to 23rd.
Let me try to meet you guys in the middle here. What I think we're kind of seeing, guys, is I'm not sure this defensive roster was ever extremely talented. You always had your kind of stars on it. What I think we're kind of seeing is Broncos country has been extremely fortunate to have like top 5 defensive minds on their team for a very long time here, stretching all the way back to Vance Joseph. And then before that, that was Wade Phillips. Like we're talking Evero Fangio, Vance Joseph, right? But before that, Wade Phillips. 3 of our 4 last defensive guys have just been absolute crazy people. We're talking about top 5 defensive guys, I think. And now we're kind of meeting into a point where it's below average, and you're seeing these holes that have always been kind of on the roster a little bit. Even this year there has been a regression, but a lot of these holes have been on the roster and they're showing because you don't have a guy out there to patch up those holes and hide it. Vic Fangio and Evero were amazing. Everybody's trying to run those defenses they mastered. Van Joseph right now is hired to try to run their defense, despite the fact that he's never done it before. That's how great these 2 last guys were for the Broncos. So I think what's happening is you're seeing a defensive coordinator just be outclassed by the prior ones, and it's shocking fans. I really think that's what's going on right now. I mean, we've been on this podcast, all 3 of us have been on this podcast being like, hey, guys, a defensive regression is probably going to happen purely off of talent regression, just a little bit. I don't think we expected it to be this stark of a drop-off because we wanted Vance Joseph to be up there at least in that top 12, top 10 range. And I'm not sure he's in that. I think he's more top 18, top 19, maybe 20, that type of area. And he's just not able to hide those holes that the Broncos defense currently has.
I like Paul's comment here. I'm going to read it over from YouTube. How many coaches do you go through to prove it is a talent issue? Respect your view, Bree. Thanks, Paul, for asking so respectfully. So I'll answer it. I don't know. I don't know what's to see here. Like Joey said, we've been on here quite a bit talking about this was what was going to happen. And I kind of wanted to start the show on that note because the expectations coming in again, you're seeing that blow up. You're seeing people have those stark reactions here. I think the boys are both correct, though. It is an issue of not being able to pull it off when it matters the most. And that's being a direct inhibitor to the success of this team. It's not new. It's definitely not something that we weren't expecting. If you'd been listening to Let's Talk Broncos, you would have heard this already. And if you're listening to the other folks, that's fine by you, but you may have had your expectations a little bit higher. Joey, I saw you had one more point.
Yeah, for sure. The main thing here, you see Rex Ryan on this thumbnail. I just want to ask you guys this, and it could be fast. Do you guys think Rex Ryan would be a better defensive coordinator than Vance Joseph right now? Do you think the Broncos would be in a better place? That's kind of my main question.
I was kind of hoping Zach would go first on this.
Man, no, I was trying to. I'm just stuck. Like, part of me wants to say no because Rex Ryan hasn't been in the NFL for so long, and going from the ESPN desk to a defensive coordinator, like, I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith that's going to go awesome. That said, it'd be really hard to be worse. Like, part of me feels like, well, they're already the 31st, 32nd defense in the league. So could Rex Ryan make them 30th or 29th? I mean, maybe. I think it could definitely be better. I would be stunned if he could make a market difference. I think like Bill Belichick, maybe Vic Fangio, maybe Ejiro Evero. I think those guys would even struggle. Again, post Chubb trade, even with Ejiro Evero, this defense was ranked 23rd in the NFL.
That is a great point, Zach, because as you're talking through that, the idea is how much appreciable difference can you see in changing out that coaching position specifically? If you change what you've already had, you're just replacing coordinators, and then the talent lack in itself or the lack of depth, whatever you want to bring to the table to say that this is why the defense is failing. I don't think a coordinator of that caliber is really moving the needle much. Although how much of Sean Payton needs to take a rap for that and not just being scapegoated into Vance Joseph, which also on Let's Talk Broncos, we talked about that happening. We have to take a worldview picture at this, Joey. So I'm glad you brought that up. How do you feel about it? Do you think Rex Ryan would be better?
I think Rex Ryan has a significantly higher ceiling. Is it definitely higher? I think it has just as good of a chance to be a disaster as well, because of the reasons Zach said, in that, hey, he's coming off an ESPN desk where a lot of people have been clowning him for some years for some of the stuff he said on there, right? But one thing you absolutely cannot take away from Rex Ryan is that he was an innovator. He's a guy that changed the defense. He really, really was. And he got 2 head coaching opportunities off that defense. It's family legacy for that guy. And his dad was amazing. His brother has had opportunities in the NFL. That is a family NFL team, and they've all been really good at defense at a point in time. I think it has a significantly high ceiling to maybe where you can hide some of those holes just because his defense is that good. But I think it also has a disastrous part to it. So I'm not exactly sure, but higher ceiling, lower floor. That's what I would say.
Oh my God, I'm having PTSD from the conversation about Josh McDaniels. We're going to move on and we're going to jump right into the bad, not even going to do good right now. I promise we'll sandwich it. We'll come back, but we got to segue into this here because we were already talking about most of it. Did you guys see a regression even from week to week? Was it as bad as you had anticipated, or is this a little bit shocking? And the reason I'm asking is because to start this season, you got to look at the to look at the season. You have to look at it in a quarterly fashion. So you want to look at, chunk by chunk, the first 4 games. I didn't think the Broncos were going to go 0-2. Now they have the probability of going 0-3 with Miami next week or this weekend. Is it where you thought it would be? And does it get better from here? Is there an ability to get better? Is this the defense we're going to see for the rest of the season, do you think?
Go ahead, Zach.
I mean, I feel it'll get better. I think part of the problem is they are having Vance Joseph run the Ejiro Evero, Vic Fangio stuff. And I don't think that's really working. I also think Vance Joseph is unfamiliar with most of this personnel. Did have him for all of camp and everything, and you'd like him to have a better feel going into the season. Again, I'm not trying to defend Vance Joseph here, but there are gaps in his knowledge currently that should improve as the season goes on. Now, that said, attrition should also be a factor. Like Randy Gregory, that he played a lot in the preseason, and we're 2 games into the season now, and history says his body could not take on many snap counts. You're already losing safeties. Maybe Kareem Jackson comes back. Again, it's so bad now, it's hard to get worse. I think it should get better as time goes on, but it's so talent poor. I don't know how much it can. There are serious holes in coverage that, I don't think Riley Moss is going to fix on his own. Maybe he does. And it's nothing against him. It's just he's a 3rd-round rookie corner. The fact that this team is oh God, hopefully our 3rd-round rookie corner can save us, I think is a testament to how rough the talent is. And again, they can dig out of that hole somewhat. I don't think they can dig all the way out of that hole.
Yeah. I don't have much to add. I agree with Zach there. I don't know if I think there's a chance for it to get better. How much better, I'm not exactly sure. You know, I think there's a chance that the Broncos end up more in that 23rd spot in defense, and I think that's kind of where I want it to be at this point, rather than like 32, bottom 30. Like that's kind of where we are right now, and that's kind of my expectations. I do think that with maybe Zach Allen turns it on. Maybe he unlocks that what we all saw in the training camp. Because that's an issue. Maybe Damari Mathis starts playing like he did last year when we were all hoping for a big season. Maybe that happens. There's certain swing factors where it could. Randy Gregory, we talked about that. Randy Gregory is a guy with all the talent in the world. If he really goes up and starts dominating, massive swing factor for the Broncos. There are some areas. Are they going to be a top 10 defense this year? No. I think it's safe to say we're going to rule that out. Are they going to be a good defense this year? I would lean no. I feel like I'm willing to rule that out. Where I do want them to be is, guys, can you please be an average defense? Can we make that happen, please? Because if you guys are average, we can start winning some games. I do think that. I think Bree froze.
Oh, Bree's frozen. Oh, shoot.
What was your good? What was your bad, Zach?
Yeah, my bad. Okay, so we talked about Vance Joseph some. I'll go deeper on the talent point now. I think there is a pretty severe lack of talent with this roster, and it's a big problem. And that's why George Payton is going to be one of them. I threw Jonathan Harris up there, but that's just to say the game plan since day one of this offseason seemingly has been to run it back with Jonathan Harris replacing Deshaun Williams, who played a lot of snaps on this team last year. So not only are you downgrading from Draymond Jones to Zach Allen, which is the one that has gotten everyone's attention, you're going from Deshaun Williams to Jonathan Harris, who was lingering on Denver's practice squad for 3-4 years. Like, those guys hang around on the practice squad for a reason. They're putting out preseason tape every year and joint practice tape and training camp tape. And people all around the league are seeing it. And defensive line is a coveted position, and no one's calling up Jonathan Harris until the Broncos did this season to start. That is like, it's one thing, but it speaks to the greater complexion of this defense, like the edge room. You need Randy Gregory to be that ace in that rotation right now. And he is so far from that. I've actually been happy with what I've seen from Nick Benito and Jonathan Cooper, but Jonathan Cooper is a 7th round draft pick. I know his tools are better than the average 7th round edge, but like, there is something there. Joey and I expected this season. All we talked about was like, Nick Benito's probably just a designated pass rusher. And I do think he's been better than that, but God, you need more. Like, this pass rush, their edge talent is bottom 5 in the league. Their defensive line talent is bottom 5 in the league. And they're paying a lot of money for that front. It's a problem. And then you have these massive gaps in the secondary. And at a point, you've got to look at George Payton. It took me a while to get to the point, but you got to look at George Payton. He has been here for 3 years. He's had plenty of time to build this roster in his image, and the roster is very bad. Oh, Zach, he hasn't had many draft picks. Why hasn't he had many draft picks? Because he chose to trade them, and it was not a good trade. Like, that falls back on him. Also, you can draft good players outside the top 50 picks. Teams do it every single year. Is it difficult? 1,000% yes, but it is extremely doable. And he has done it at a lower rate than most over these past 2 seasons. You can also supplement it with free agency signings. His free agency signings have been really bad. Man, it's not good. If you want to keep him, you want to see how he can work with Sean Payton or whatever, fine. But his resume thus far is really poor. And I think he's responsible for, like, Joey said it on Twitter today, like 80% of the Broncos' problems, I think, lie at the feet of George Payton.
Man, I get kicked off the show, and then Zach goes on a Zach Seegers rant. Appreciate it, Zach. I think you're
sorry,
right.
Bree.
Don't.
That wasn't bad. It was pretty much the talent construction on this team. And Bree, I think, I don't know, I kind of agree there. Guys, Zach said it, but I mean, when you look at the talent on this team, I forget who it was, but a very reputable person who I really trust dang, I wish I understood it or remembered who has said it, but where's the Broncos elite group on this team? Like, where are they elite at any position group? Where are they
Well,
top
I
five?
was gonna say like tight end was pretty solid, but then see how that worked out.
Running back
Linebacker.
probably, maybe linebacker if but we're not even using Drew Sanders, so like, can I say that? It's very concerning, and I agree with the people when they say, but where were his picks? Where were his resources? To that, I would respond and say he traded them. Like, I don't know what else you want me to say about that. Is he got rid of those resources. That wasn't anybody else. Like, why are we taking his blame away from that? He was the one that got rid of that. It wasn't anybody else. The Rush trade took that away. The Rush trade kind of blew up back in his face. Is Russ a quarterback you can win with? Yes. Not a quarterback you are going to excel with. I don't think he's
or win because of
polls or because of, yeah. It's just like, I agree with you guys. How is George Paton? It makes it a lot tougher when you trade those picks. What did George Paton do, though? Trade those picks. Like, it's still his fault. I don't know what you guys want me to say about it.
And he's not a infant. Like, he is a smart NFL person. He knows how the league works. And when you trade all that capital for a quarterback, it is with the understanding that when you are loading up to win rings right then. That's part of the evaluation. The other evaluation, like, you know what you're doing. You know you're handicapping yourself somewhat. You're losing first and second round picks. That's going to limit your ability to team build. Part of the calculation is this quarterback is so good, he'll make up for it.
Yeah.
He was wrong on that evaluation, and he was wrong on the evaluation that this roster was a quarterback away from competing for a Super Bowl.
Right.
If the thing we are going to hang George Paton's hat on is that he is this amazing talent evaluator, one, why are the Broncos so lacking in talent? Like, even depth pieces. Like, these late round picks don't have to be studs. Be quality depth pieces. He has not been able to deliver that. And I'm sorry, Broncos country, most GMs actually are able to deliver that. Yes, fifth round picks don't often become starters, but look at the rosters around the league and how their depth is constructed. Yeah. It's constructed of a lot of their late round draft picks from past seasons. But with George Paton, you have a Luke Wattenberg, who I don't think anyone trusts to produce it all, or a Montrell Washington, who no one in their right mind trusts to produce it all. Man, it's lacking talent severely. And also, when you lose draft picks, you have to find other avenues to add talent to the roster. You don't just get to have an untalented roster. He has failed at exploiting those other avenues. Look at Howie Roseman and the Eagles. The Eagles aren't the Eagles because Howie Roseman drafts well. Like, is that part of it? 100%. He also is good at free agency. He's good at exploiting the trade market. He's good at finding undrafted free agents. He's good at finding practice squad guys. Right. He's good at finding buy low options for developmental talent. He is good at head coach hires. Another thing George Paton horrifically failed at. I mean, in the last 40 years, 2 coaches have been fired before the completion of their first season. Urban Meyer, who we all agree is a terrible head coach, and Nathaniel Hackett, who we all agree is a terrible head coach. Paton is responsible for one of those, objectively.
Yeah. And also, I also want to point this out, and then we can move on. Guys, when you trade for a quarterback and you trade that much, it's just pretty much this simple, guys. I said the same thing about the kicker this offseason. If you go into a playoffs and you miss 3 field goals or 4 PATs in a playoff game, you can't go out in the next preseason and miss a field goal. You're going to be blamed. We can't trust you. You can't, as a GM, go into a season, trade all of your picks and give a massive contract to a player and fail on it. You're going to be fired. You're going to be cut. You're going to be blamed. It has ripple effects down your roster. It's just that simple. I understand we all want to make excuses, but it's just not how it works in the NFL. It's not for long league. Simple as that.
I'm mad, and I will make one more point, and then I will shut up. Ryan Pace. Everyone keeps using him as, oh, you want to fire George Paton? Guess what? Then Ryan Pace is going to come in. Ryan Pace, for those of you who don't know, was this hyped up wunderkind under Sean Payton. This is the next great NFL GM. And then he got hired by the Bears and was a bum. George Paton was this incredible wunderkind assistant GM with Minnesota, hyped up as the next great GM. He got hired and was bad. Guess what, Broncos country? You have currently been employing Ryan Pace. Stop using Ryan Pace as some boogeyman. He's already the GM. I'm done.
There you go.
Fuck yeah, let's go. I have nothing to add to this situation. I was watching it unravel. I loved every second of it. Thank you so much, guys, for doing that. I feel bad. And this is where my job gets really hard here on Let's Talk Broncos. I'd love to pepper in a sandwich of what was good from the game, but I don't want to talk about the good. I want to get ugly here. Let's go directly into what was ugly from this game. A lot of penalties, a pretty terrifying hit. And let me qualify this statement by saying I think Kareem Jackson is a wonderful person. He's one of my favorite players to ever don a Broncos jersey. I was shocked by the hit when it happened. And in my head, I just assumed, it was another one of those fluky accidents because they do happen, especially in this league. It is a case of a lot of bang, bang, quick action plays happen. I thought that's what this one was. This one, on the other hand, though, I'm not going to try to excuse it. I will say in this game, it is very violent. Things happen. I do not think that in any possibility he was targeting, nor should he have been ejected from the game. I do think a fine is fine here, but a suspension I don't think is going to happen, nor do I think it is I don't think it's a case in which it needs to happen. I think the narrative turned very ugly after this game, that he should be gone. He should be out of the league. He shouldn't be a player here in the NFL for the Broncos, for people's favorite teams. Listen, Kareem Jackson has always been a very heavy hitter. And when it makes a big splash play, Broncos country is super excited to have it. So in this instance, when it's ugly and it's happened 2 weeks in a row, I can understand why it rubs people the wrong way. I'm going to be biased when I'm speaking about this. I'll be honest when I say it, that I don't believe that you go throwing this guy off the roster. I don't think you take him off the field, but I do think he comes from an era when he first started playing the league. He has been around a very long time, that those kind of plays have changed as he's been a member of this team. You're not going to slow Kareem Jackson down. You're not going to take him out of the game. You're not going to make him be less explosive, but you need to take him as the player for all of the things that happen. And that includes an ugly hit like this, where I don't believe his intentionality was to hurt. I think it was honestly to make the play. And in his mind, he wanted to make that play. Whether it was moving for the ball, I don't think he was intentionally trying to hurt anybody, but I'll take it from you guys, because I know that I can side on Kareem Jackson's side quite often.
Yeah, I'll say this. Football moves really fast, right? Like, these rules are ever changing. Every single year there's a big rule change in the NFL. And, I will say this. 3 years ago, it would have been a flag nonetheless. But 3 years ago, we would have had a lot more people saying he was just trying to dislodge him from the ball. And then 5 years ago, there would have been a lot more people supporting it. 10 years ago, it would have been clean. I think everyone with Kareem Jackson's personality, everyone we've had on this podcast, comes on here and talks about, all the players we've come on here is talk about how great of a person Kareem Jackson is. I doubt he was trying to hurt him. He just needs to have more awareness, without question. Like, that was a dangerous football hit. That's something I will say. I feel terrible for Logan Thomas, who has a concussion. I've gone through multiple concussions myself, and that's a shitty thing, just plain forward. We don't even have the research on how that affects your brain long term. We know about CTE, and we know about how serious that is and everything like that. But I mean, one hit could change your life like that. It's just kind of the issue with football just in general, if I'm being completely honest, and it sucks to say that. But I just want to, hey, prayers up to Logan Thomas. I hope he's all right. I hope he comes back to the football field absolutely straight. I hope this has no long-term mental health scares with him. I hope everything's good. It's a scary hit. Kareem Jackson needs to have more awareness. Do I think it was an intentional? No. That's what I will say.
Yeah, no, I don't think he was headhunting. Obviously maybe there's some bias at play here, but I don't think it was like, the CSU hit where like you're tracking that guy. It's way after the play. The ball's hit the ground and gone incomplete and you hit him in the liver. But yeah, I mean, I think you can make a sentimental case against it, like Joey just did. This is serious long-term health ramifications, and it can be a concussion. It can also be a lot worse than a concussion, and we've seen that happen. And he's done this 2 times in 2 games this season, and that's not good. Also, to back up the points we just made about this defense rather, this defense and this secondary are pretty shaky right now. Yeah. You cannot be giving opponents free 15 yards. You cannot be taking yourself. The Broncos are already down a safety for the season with Caden Stern's injury. You cannot be taking another good piece out of that secondary by doing dumb things like this. And refs are going to be watching it like hawks the rest of the season. You've done this twice in the first 2 weeks. Every officiating crew is watching Kareem Jackson like a hawk, and he's not getting benefit of the doubt. If it is close, that flag is getting thrown. So you are a 14-year veteran. All the players we've had on the show have gushed about how smart he is, how much of a veteran leader he is. This is an area for him, I think, to demonstrate that and step up.
Don't forget PJ Locke also, who would love to be able to step out there. So a couple weeks out from a possible return. We wanted to think about that. I just wanted to wrap up a little bit just because it leaves a little bit of a gross feeling in my mouth. Because intention is everything, right? Yeah, and I think that, Zach, your point is 100% spot on, is now it's going to be a problem. Now it is a trend. Now it's moving in a direction where it's unsavory for Kareem Jackson. But you can see in the image that we have is blown up very miraculously that a punching down motion, the inevitability, the jump that's there. I just want to say that when I look at it, my vantage point is going to be different from people with a different vantage point. If you think that he's dirty, if you think that he's targeting, if you think that he leads with his helmet too often, which Justin Simmons just did last week as well, keep the same energy when you're talking about a player who is not a driving force here. Although if it happens again, you're right. Something's going to have to happen, whether or not it's intentional or anything. But when you want a defense to step up and finish the job, make big plays, produce turnovers, you want to make a play on that ball, how he did it was wrong. It was a mistake. I get that. It's just at the end of the day, football is a violent sport.
Yes. Say that louder, Bree. Football is like gladiator shit, if we're being real. So yeah,
no matter how much you bubble wrap, no matter how many rules that you change to make it a safer predicament for these players, what we consume and what we talk about is an extremely violent sport. So I just want everyone to remember that accidents happen, freak things happen, intentionality happens. I'm not saying this is either or. I can't speak for K-Jack, but I don't understand the idea of he's got to go. Listen, you don't have any other viable options at safety. You don't. You're not going to be able to convert every single defensive back over to that position. You could change it a little bit, but if you're saying that and you're telling me you need more talent on the roster, that's exactly why the Broncos brought Kareem Jackson back this season, because they needed the talent on the roster. So I just don't want to have that conversation. I get a little bit defensive. I don't want to talk about it anymore, but we got to talk about penalties because I think that was another severe issue. And guess what? It was the defense. Zach, why is it the defense? Why is the offense not conducting these penalties? There's hardly any holding.
One side is coached by Sean Payton and the other is coached by Vance Joseph. And Sean Payton is Mr. Details. He's off the Bill Parcells tree, and Vance Joseph is not. I mean, not to be like that. I do think that's a big part of it. And then you have the call at the end of the game, which went against the offense. That stood out to me as the ugliest officiating moment of the day. That was a pretty. Maybe I get you don't want to. Like, you just want to keep the flag in your pocket at that point in the game. I get that. You want to let the players decide it. But that definitely looked like pass interference. I think the Broncos should have gotten another shot at that down. Who knows if they score there, but they should have gotten another shot on the 2-point conversion.
Without question, they should have got another 2. The Broncos, did they deserve to win? Definitely not. But in the end of the day, they were in position to win, and the refs don't call the game based off of should you win or should you not. It's based on the rule book. Guys, I'm getting sick and tired of people talking about, you know what? The Broncos didn't deserve to win. I'm happy that wasn't a PI because they didn't deserve to win. Shut up. We're going off the rule book. The Broncos got that Hail Mary. We were in position to win. That was a PI, straight up and down. I don't know what else you guys want. The Broncos should have been in position to go for another opportunity there, and it didn't happen thanks to the refs.
I'm a big proponent of any given Sunday. The best or worst can happen for a team. It just so happens that the Broncos really can't grab the continuity. I love that word, to be able to make a win happen. Losing both games by a total of 3 points. It's just a little bit. It's just like a little bit like annoying at this point, because it's like, well, they could have, but they didn't. And I'm done with the negativity. I really want to talk about what was good. And Joey hit it on the head when he mentioned the Hail Mary, because, oh my God, for the first time in what feels like forever, the Broncos were trying to get it done. Joey, talk a little bit about that Hail Mary pass. And I will admit, guys, I was on my way out of the stadium at that point. I never leave games early. I never, ever. I sit through sleet and ice and frozen tundras for this team. And on a very beautiful 80-degree day, I said, I'm done.
Fair. I was in the DMs going berserk, so it makes sense. You know what? I probably exhausted you. Zach probably exhausted you. The LTB group chat probably exhausted you. We were spamming in their negativity. Anyways, yeah, the Hail Mary pass was cool. I didn't think that when that ball released from Russ's hand, I don't know if anybody else thought this, but it didn't look like he got so much air on it straight out of his hand. I thought there was no chance that was getting to the end zone. I thought that was getting maybe 20 yards down the field and was going to plop right down in the middle of the right at the 20-yard line or something like that. But no, it did make its way to the end zone. Not exactly the end zone, but got tipped up a few times. Brandon Johnson caught it. One of my favorite players of all time's cousin, Chad Ochocinco. I'm a big Brandon Johnson guy, so happy about that. I wish, though, I mean, it's going to be erased. It's not going to be a big deal because the Broncos didn't convert that 2-point conversion. Thank you, referees. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I mean, awesome Hail Mary. Good performance by Russell Wilson, too, overall. I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit here. I discovered Brandon Johnson. I was the first person on this beat who thought Brandon Johnson was something special. And now he's starting. I think he's looked good. I think he could make the what was good column. He had he had 2 touchdowns, right? Because of the Hail Mary. He's looked really good. Russell Wilson, too. I think he deserves some praise. Wasn't the best performance, but he is a lot better this year. And I want to give him credit for that because I was so critical last year. But Marvin Mims, I think, was the best part of the day. The number 4 receiver in the league in terms of yards per route run is CeeDee Lamb, 3.6 yards per route run. Number 3 is Mike Evans, Breeze guy, awesome player, 3.76 yards per route run. The number 2, no surprise here, Tyreek Hill, 3.86 yards per route run. Number 1, at exactly double Tyreek Hill, Marvin Mims Jr., 7.63 yards per route run. Now, that is crazy inflated by a small sample size and a couple deep bomb touchdowns. But I do think it shows the explosive capability this guy has, and he's been awesome. Has the sample size been limited? Totally. We're not trying to hide that. That is a fact of that stat. But is anyone doing more on any sample size? That's with minimum 0 targets, minimum 1 target or whatever. It applies to anyone playing any amount of snaps. No one is doing more with a smaller sample size, with a bigger sample size. No one's even actually doing half outside of Tyreek Hill of what Marvin Mims has done on his snaps. So that's awesome. It looks like Sean Payton made a pretty good draft pick.
Clarifying question, just because I'm curious and I don't actually know. Does that return count for... Okay, cool.
No, so yards per route run, and I love it as an efficiency metric. But it's looking at, it's kind of like yards per snap, but it's not going to penalize you for run blocking. It's not going to penalize you for, really for blocking or whatever else you were doing on a play that wasn't running a route. If you go out for a route, then it'll count and it'll just average the yards over how many routes you're running. It's like yards per attempt for receivers. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, Marvin Mims looks spectacular. The one play, and I'll move on to mine if that's okay with you guys, is the one play that stands out to me, other than obviously the 2 bomb plays that he got down the field. Man, that little jet sweep he caught to extend the series, he had no business getting any yards out of that. Marvin Mims got yards out of it. That's the type of stuff I want to see. It wasn't just him running past people or anything like that. He made a football play, and he made a damn good football play. On top of the kick return, on top of the 2 bombs he caught. Marvin Mims looks like a guy. For people that don't remember, Sean Payton has only drafted 4 guys in the second round, in the top 2 rounds, and that includes Michael Thomas, Robert Meacham, Marvin Mims, and Brandon Cooks. Pretty good list to be a part of, guys. That is a damn good list to be a part of. I think Sean Payton knows what he's looking for in that category, and I'm excited about it, especially after that game he had. Better than I ever could have anticipated for Marvin Mims. More snaps, please, Broncos. More snaps from Marvin Mims. Mine, though, my good is going to be Nick Bonito, guys. Just because I'm going to throw one out there that's a little different than the others. I think people were expecting Nick Bonito. He got a lot of hate coming into the season, and for me, I was vocal always in that if you liked Nick Bonito before last season, you had no reason not to like him, because I always thought he was going to be a designated pass rusher type guy. And what did he show this last week? That I think he's going to be successful in that designated pass rusher role. I think he's going to get after the quarterback at a high level. I think that progression is going to continue to come. I think he's going to be a guy that the Broncos can deploy in those situations, and he's going to be able to get after the quarterback, maybe even drop back in coverage a little bit. He's kind of an inside linebacker edge hybrid if we're really looking at it. So I think stock up for him just because I see dramatic improvements from last year. What do you guys think?
Oh, sorry. I thought Zach was muted. I legitimately thought we were having a case with the Zach muted. Oh, well, all right. That's nice of you. I don't really know if I have I don't really know if I have anything to add there, because I think it's so. I'm sorry. I'm losing my train of thought here. I think that I got distracted. I hit Samuel Castro's. I want to talk about this for a second. Yeah. Need to see more McLaughlin. Guys got wheels. Obviously, Mims playing really well. Why do you? Well, we can't go into this because we're going to go like super crazy over here, yeah. and I'm really sorry about that. Zach, did you have a positive that you wanted to add? Because this was supposed to be a lightning round, and I'm just screwing up the end.
I'll go.
No, you're fine. Marvin Mims was mine. I wanted to just highlight that. I think the yards per route. One, he had a really great game. Anyone can see that with their own 2 eyes. The stat there is crazy. Again, that's every receiver to have run a route this year. Like, yes, it's a small sample size. Other receivers have small sample sizes. I think it's still pretty cool.
There you go. Yeah. The other thing is just the first half. That's my big good one, is that Sean Payton on script looked fantastic. That first drive was just mastery play calling, where you had defense misdirection. They had no idea where they were going that first drive. That was chef's kiss.
It's good to see a change of pace from obviously last season, is that the first halves are starting to look really good. Can they finish, though? NFL's game of can you finish, can you score enough points, and can you get the job done? So we'll have to see if that gets better. Listen, guys, after the first 4 weeks, there should be a jump. There should be an improvement here. Playing the game at NFL speed, even if you had a successful training camp, often spells an improvement here. It's just probably going to be too little too late. So we'll see how the Broncos end this season. Let's Talk Broncos. We'll be back for another episode on Wednesday. It'll be myself, Joey Richards, Zach Seegers, and Brandon Perna. And like I mentioned to start the show, if you're not already doing so, tune in. Oh, and Will Keys. I forgot because he was off last week, and I was just reading off of that. Buy your Buff shirt. Listen to Let's Talk Buffs. We'll talk to you soon. Let's Talk Broncos is here for you literally every day of the week. So we've got you covered. We've got you handled. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not doing so already, and leave me nice comments because I read them all. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye. Have a good night.